Hello and welcome to my talk on our paper, Why TLS is Better Without STARTTLS, Security Analysis of STARTTLS in the email context. This paper is joint work with Damian, Poddebniak, Hanno, Böck, and Sebastian, Schinzel. And my name is Fabian Ising. Let's take a quick look at the email ecosystem. Mainly, three protocols are relevant for email: SMTP, POP3, and IMAP, all of which can be used with STARTTLS. SMTP is used in submitting emails to a server and transferring them between servers, so-called MTAs or mail transfer agents. IMAP and POP3 are used for email retrieval. Our focus in this paper are the connections between a mail client and a mail server, and we will not look at MTA to MTA SMTP connections today. This is our attacker model. We assume a meddler in the middle that can eavesdrop and manipulate TCP connections between the victim's mail client and the mail server. The attacker will only manipulate data sent in plaintext and at no point will break TLS itself. So what is STARTTLS? In contrast to implicit TLS, which is basically SMTP, IMAP, or POP3 over TLS, STARTTLS adds a plaintext phase before the actual TLS connection, in which client and server negotiate the use of TLS. Let's look at a sample IMAP trace. What you see in the first line is the IMAP server's greeting, containing its capabilities, in this case IMAP 4ref1 and STARTTLS. In the second line, you see the first client's command, STARTTLS, tagged A. And in response, we get a server response also tagged A. After that, the TLS handshake is performed, and anything before it was in plaintext, and anything after it is encrypted. You might ask yourselves, who even uses STARTTLS today? We found that some large providers, for example Microsoft and Apple, exclusively support STARTTLS but not implicit TLS for SMTP submission. Additionally, some clients still configure STARTTLS by default. And if you look into your own mail client, you might also have configured STARTTLS. During my talk, I will consider 4 questions regarding STARTTLS. First, we wanted to find out if modern mail clients are opportunistic in their use of STARTTLS. STARTTLS is often regarded as an opportunistic protocol that falls back to plaintext if STARTTLS is unavailable. In this case, an attacker could simply use a well-known STARTTLS stripping attack to force a client to send sensitive data in plaintext. Second, we analyzed what potentially sensitive data is exchanged in plaintext and how clients might be coerced into exposing additional sensitive data. Third, we looked at what potentially malicious data from the plaintext phase remains when transitioning to TLS in both clients and servers. Fourth, we analyzed error handling and exampled specific error signals from all 3 protocols for behavior in mail clients, for example, showing UI alerts. To answer all these questions, we built the EAST framework that is available on GitHub. The framework consists of 3 components: a custom-built and configurable mail server and a set of automatable virtual machines with installed mail clients to test them for STARTTLS issues. Second, scanning scripts for internet scans of mail servers for a specific vulnerability detailed later in this talk. Third, manual testing scripts for server installations to verify found vulnerabilities. First, let us look at what we call negotiation issues. These are client issues that prevent the client from transitioning to TLS in the first place. The listing shows the 2 classic STARTTLS stripping attacks. We can either strip the STARTTLS capability from the server's messages or inject an error when receiving the STARTTLS command. In both cases, the mail client might continue to log in plaintext. The second negotiation issue we looked at is the pre-auth greeting in IMAP. This greeting can be sent if the mail server can identify you without needing your credentials, for example, because you connected from a specific IP address. The catch here is that STARTTLS is not allowed when a client is already authenticated. While generally you cannot steal credentials using this attack, some mail clients upload sent or drafted mails on pre-auth connections. In total, 15 out of 28 tested mail clients were vulnerable to negotiation attacks, among them iOS Mail and Gmail for Android, both of which uploaded sent and drafted emails in plaintext. More interesting though, when disclosing this to software vendors, we found that only one mail client, Offline IMAP, a client for offline access to your IMAP inboxes, is meant to be opportunistic in STARTTLS. All others recognize negotiation issues as bugs. The next issue class we looked at were tampering issues. These allowed us to place bogus data, for example folders or emails, into the victim's inbox. This is possible in this example because the untagged list response, adding a new folder, is not formally bound to a specific state in IMAP and will sometimes be interpreted even before STARTTLS, allowing us to create a attacker-controlled folder. 5 out of 28 clients were vulnerable to this or similar exploits in our tests. Next, we look at what happens when an attacker uses error signals for UI spoofing purposes. Here, we inject an IMAP alert with attacker-controlled text before STARTTLS. This results in the following pop-up in Outlook. As you can see, this dialog displays our attacker-controlled text and even highlights links for us. 11 clients showed attacker-controlled UI alerts even before STARTTLS. Let us move on to a server bug from 2011 that was originally found by the postfix developer Vice Vinima. This issue was dubbed a command injection. Consider these two commands sent by a client in the same TCP segment. Upon the next network read, both commands are put into the application buffer you see on the right. Then, the server interprets the STARTTLS command as normal and performs the TLS handshake. However, what happens to the remaining no-op command in the buffer? Postfix, for example, never cleared this buffer after transitioning to TLS. Therefore, this command is taken from the buffer after the TLS handshake, even though it was sent in unauthenticated plaintext, and now it is indistinguishable from a command sent over TLS. Even though this bug has been known since 2011, it was still present in 8 out of 23 mail server products we tested. In total, this bug was present either now or in the past in 16 of these 23 servers, showing that this is a widespread issue that can only happen with STARTTLS, but not with implicit TLS. We also scanned the internet for this bug and found it in 2% of all mail servers. The 10-year-old command injection bug piqued our interest. If it is so common in servers, won't clients make the same mistake in STARTTLS? Therefore, we extended the command injection to response injection. In the display trace, the attacker injects a response to the command tag B before it is sent by the client, causing the client to interpret it after the transition to TLS. We found 16 out of 28 tested clients to be vulnerable to this issue, among them Apple Mail and Thunderbird. Finally, I want to tell you about the exploits achievable using these vulnerabilities. These are only the exploits described in the paper, but there might be more in practice. Roughly, we are interested in stealing credentials and emails, putting stuff in the user's mailbox, UI spoofing, and as a special case, a cross-protocol attack against HTTPS. This is a credential stealing attack in IMAP using the server-side command injection. After the STARTTLS command, the attacker injects two commands, a login command into their own account and a append command to upload an email to their own mailbox. These commands are interpreted after the TLS handshake. When the victim's first encrypted command, login, is interpreted, the server is already waiting for the mail body to the append command. The login command, including the credentials, is therefore uploaded to the attacker's inbox where they can retrieve them at their convenience. This attack would also work when the client uses implicit TLS. Here, we have another credential stealing attack that uses the pre-auth greeting client-side. Since STARTTLS is not available after authentication, as I've already told you, the mail client proceeds in plaintext trying to select their inbox. However, in this case, the attacker responds with a referral response, redirecting the client to an attacker-controlled domain, where the client will log in again and reveal their credentials to the attacker. The next attack is a cross-protocol attack on HTTPS. The exploit uses IMAP's tag reflection to construct the HTTP response using a command injection. We start by injecting a command with the tag http/1.1200 without spaces, and then use tags that look like HTTP headers, in this case ignore header : for login and a select command. And finally, we are fetching a mail from the attacker's inbox using the tag // that looks like an HTML comment. After that, the attacker relays the victim's browser's HTTPS connection into the primed server. This results in the trace on the right side. The browser will send a normal GET request and will in response receive the responses to the injected commands. Since the attacker fetches a mail from their own mailbox with the last command, they can present arbitrary HTTPS content, in example an XSS script, under any names in the mail server's certificate. Note that of course this is not syntactically correct HTTP, but it will be displayed fine in current versions of Chrome and Firefox. So how do we go about mitigating these issues? The most straightforward thing to do as an email user is to switch to implicit TLS and disable STARTTLS. Server providers, on the other hand, should also evaluate if they can cut STARTTLS support in the future. However, we recognize that disabling STARTTLS might not be a workable solution for everyone. Therefore, if you must use STARTTLS, you should isolate the plaintext phase completely from the TLS phase by clearing any remaining state. This includes clearing any application buffers, hopefully also fixing the buffering issues in the process. Finally, as a protocol and implementation measure, we recommend streamlining the STARTTLS negotiation, only sending and accepting the bare minimum of plaintext messages before transitioning to STARTTLS. In conclusion, we found that compared to implicit TLS, STARTTLS adds attack surface to mail protocols without adding any benefits. Furthermore, we found that STARTTLS implementation on both servers and clients have widespread issues, hinting at systemic problems with STARTTLS. And, as we have shown, the effect of these vulnerabilities is not limited to STARTTLS, but allows cross-protocol attacks against HTTPS and implicit TLS. We conclude that TLS is better without STARTTLS, and STARTTLS should be avoided where possible.